What happens when you take a perfectly proper British roadster and drop an American V8 into its engine bay? You might expect disaster. After all, the English were building sports cars for nimble handling and weekend drives through the countryside, not for straight-line acceleration and tire-smoking power. Yet when Carroll Shelby, the same man who created the legendary Cobra, shoehorned a Ford 5.8 into the Sunbeam Alpine, something remarkable happened. The Tiger was born. But here's the twist that makes this story genuinely fascinating. The Sunbeam Tiger wasn't killed by poor sales, mechanical failures, or a lack of customer interest. This British-American hybrid died at the hands of corporate politics, strangled by the very company that should have embraced it. In 1967, after producing just over 7,000 examples, the Tiger's production came to an abrupt end. The reason? Chrysler Corporation had taken control of the Roots Group, and there was no way Detroit's third-largest automaker would allow a competitor's engine under the bonnet of one of its cars. To understand the significance of this story, we need to picture America in 1964. The British invasion wasn't just about music, it was happening in our driveways too. MG, Triumph, and Austin Healey roadsters were everywhere, their wire wheels and twin carburetors representing affordable European sophistication. But these cars had one glaring weakness: power. The MGB made 95 horsepower from its 1.8-litre four-cylinder. The Triumph TR4 squeezed out 100. Respectable numbers for winding roads, perhaps, but Americans wanted more. The Sunbeam Tiger delivered that more in spectacular fashion. With 164 horsepower from a genuine Ford small-block V8, it could reach 60 miles per hour in under 8 seconds and top out at 118 miles per hour. More importantly, it did this while maintaining the civility and refinement that made British roadsters so appealing in the first place. This wasn't a crude hot rod conversion, it was a factory-engineered sports car that happened to have an American heartbeat. The story of how the Tiger came to exist involves Formula One champions, corporate intrigue, and one of the automotive world's most successful collaborations. And the story of why it died involves corporate pride, incompatible engine architecture, and timing, so unfortunate it could only happen in the British motor industry of the 1960s. Section 1. The genesis of an unlikely partnership. The Sunbeam Alpine had been in production since 1959, and by 1962, the Roots Group knew it needed more power to remain competitive. The company had even approached Ferrari, yes, Ferrari, about redesigning the Alpine's four-cylinder engine. The cachet of "powered by Ferrari" badges would have been priceless for marketing. But those negotiations fell apart, leaving Roots searching for alternatives. Enter Jack Brabham, the Australian racing driver and Formula One world champion. In October of 1962, Brabham and Sterling Moss co-drove an Alpine to a second-place finish in the production car class at the Los Angeles Times Grand Prix held at Riverside, California. Brabham, ever the engineer, mentioned to Roots competition manager Norman Garrett that a Ford 5.8 would transform the Alpine into a genuine performance car. Garrett relayed this suggestion to his son Ian, who managed Roots' West Coast operations in the United States. Ian Garrett was already watching Carroll Shelby's work with intense interest. Shelby had recently convinced AC Cars to accept Ford's 260 cubic inch V8 into the delicate AC Ace chassis, creating the Cobra. The results were nothing short of sensational. If Shelby could make that combination work, surely he could do the same for the Alpine. Garrett arranged a meeting with Shelby and John Panks, director of Roots Group America. According to various accounts, Garrett essentially borrowed $10,000 from the American marketing budget without London's knowledge to fund Shelby's engineering work. Shelby agreed to develop a prototype and receive a royalty on each car if the project reached production. The work fell to Shelby American, with fabrication overseen by Phil Remington, one of the most talented fabricators in the business. They quickly discovered what Shelby later described with his characteristic Texas drawl: I think that if the figure of speech about the shoehorn ever applied to anything, it surely did to the tight squeak in getting that 260 Ford mill into the Sunbeam engine compartment. There was a place for everything and a space for everything, but positively not an inch to spare. Getting the engine to fit required modifying the firewall. Early production cars had their firewalls literally bashed in with sledgehammers after arriving at Jensen Motors for assembly. The installation required replacing the Alpine's recirculating ball steering with a rack and pinion system, upgrading the cooling system, and fabricating dual exhaust that snaked through the frame rails. A Borg-Warner T10 4-speed transmission was installed initially, since Ford couldn't supply enough of the new Mustang's 4-speed gearboxes. Racing driver Ken Miles also built a prototype, though his featured an experimental 2-speed automatic transmission. Both cars were shipped to England in July of 1963 for evaluation by Lord Rootes himself. Here's where the story gets interesting. Lord Rootes reportedly arrived at his office one morning to discover that his company had been developing an entirely new model without his knowledge. According to various accounts, he was very grumpy about this unauthorized project, but Rootes insisted on test driving the Shelby prototype himself. Shortly after returning from that drive, he was on the phone with Henry Ford II, negotiating directly for V8 engines. Rootes placed an initial order for 3,000 engines, the largest single order Ford had received at that time. Section 2, Rush to Production. Not only did Lord Rootes approve production, he made a decision that sent his engineering team into near panic. The Tiger would debut at the New York Motor Show in April of 1964, just 8 months away. The company's normal development cycle from concept to production ran 3 to 4 years. They had less than one. The Alpine's elegant bodywork remained essentially unchanged, which was part of the Tiger's genius. Looking at the two cars side by side, only subtle details revealed which was which. The Tiger wore chrome strips along the sides, slightly different badging, and powered by Ford 260 shields on the front fenders. Under that familiar skin, however, significant changes had taken place. The chassis required strengthening to handle the V8's torque. The suspension needed recalibrating, though the Tiger was only about 20% heavier than the Alpine. The extra weight sat almost entirely over the front wheels. Engineers managed to maintain a remarkably similar weight distribution to the Alpines, at 51.7% front and 48.3% rear. Bodies were built and painted at Pressed Steel in Oxfordshire, then shipped to Jensen Motors in West Bromwich for final assembly. Jensen had experience building low-volume cars and proved up to the task. By June of 1964, Tigers were rolling off the assembly line at a rate that would eventually reach 300 units per month. The car that emerged was something special. Road testers praised its refinement. Unlike the Cobra, which was essentially a race car with license plates, the Tiger offered roll-up windows, adjustable bucket seats with cushioned backrests, an adjustable steering wheel, and a level of build quality that felt genuinely upmarket. Contemporary road tests noted that the Tiger returned 20 miles per gallon while delivering 0 to 60 performance that embarrassed many supposedly sporting machines costing far more. Shortly before the New York debut, the car received its name. Originally codenamed Thunderbolt, it was rechristened Tiger in honor of Rootes' own 1925 land speed record car, a 4-liter V12-powered machine that had captured the public imagination 4 decades earlier. Section 3. Market, Reception, and Evolution. In 1964, its first year of production, 1,649 Tigers were assembled. All but 56 were shipped to North America, where the car was priced at $3,499. This positioned it well below the Jaguar E-Type, but significantly above the MGB, which sold for around $2,658. The comparison Americans really cared about, though, was the Shelby Cobra, and at less than half the Cobra's price, the Tiger represented remarkable value. The Tiger wasn't available in the UK until March of 1965, when it entered the home market at £1,446. This was actually £60 cheaper than a Triumph TR4, making it a genuine bargain for British buyers who could stomach the insurance costs of a V8. Production peaked in 1965, when Rootes built 3,020 Tigers, nearly half of all first-generation cars produced. The company was selling every Tiger it could build. Ian Garrett's West Coast operation offered an extensive catalogue of performance and accessory options through what became known as the LAT catalogue, Los Angeles Tiger, cross-team. These dealer-installed options included everything from Edelbrock manifolds and Holley 4-barrel carburetors to traction bars, limited-slip differentials, and even racing jackets and lapel pins. The LAT-1 kit, which included an Edelbrock F4B aluminum intake manifold and a Holley 4-barrel carburetor, was advertised to boost power by 30 horsepower over stock. Modified Tigers with these upgrades could produce up to 245 horsepower, enough to make them genuinely quick by any standard of the era. When the Series 5 Alpine arrived in 1965 with revised bodywork, the Tiger received corresponding updates. These later cars are generally designated Mark IA by enthusiasts, though the factory never officially used that designation. The most noticeable differences were sharper corners on the door bottoms, hood, and trunk lid. Between August of 1965 and early February of 1966, 2,706 Mark IA Tigers were built. Section 4. Racing success. While the Tiger never achieved the Cobra's legendary competition record, it proved surprisingly successful on multiple fronts. The car's most unexpected triumph came in drag racing. In 1965, Gordon Chittenden piloted a Larry Reed sports car's Tiger to the AHRA national record with an elapsed time of 12.95 seconds at 108 miles per hour. What made this achievement remarkable was that Chittenden held that record through 1967, an eternity in drag racing terms. On road circuits, the Tiger proved competitive, if not dominant. Jim Adams, driving for the Hollywood sports car dealership, scored victories and podium finishes throughout 1965. The Tiger nearly captured the SCCA-B Production National Championship in 1966, ultimately falling short due to a last race incident at Daytona when a Corvette took out the leading Tiger. European rally competition told a similar story of promise, occasionally fulfilled. Tigers took first, second, and third places in the 1964 Geneva Rally. In the 1965 Monte Carlo Rally, one Tiger finished fourth overall, the highest placing by a front-engined, rear-wheel drive car, while another took 11th. The Tiger even won the 1965 Alpine Rally outright, though scrutineers later disqualified the car for technical infractions involving undersized cylinder head valves. Two extensively modified Tigers even competed at the 1964 24 Hours of Le Mans. These cars wore fastback coupe bodies produced by Lister and cost $45,000 each to build. Neither finished the race, but their presence demonstrated Rootes' serious competition intentions. By 1967, however, the SCCA had reclassified Tigers into C production, and rule changes prohibited the use of lat options. The car's competitive window had closed. Section 5. The Mark II and Corporate Catastrophe. In December of 1966, the Mark II Tiger entered production, with Ford's 289 cubic-inch V8 replacing the 260. The larger engine improved 0 to 60 times to 7.5 seconds and pushed top speed to 122 miles per hour. But the Mark II represented more than just a bigger engine, it represented the beginning of the end. By mid-1964, after a devastating strike and the expensive launch of the Hillman Imp, the Rootes Group was in severe financial trouble. Chrysler Corporation, seeking to establish a European presence, purchased a significant stake in Rootes. Initially, this didn't equal controlling interest, but it put enormous pressure on Rootes management, to justify building a car powered by their biggest competitor's engine. The Mark II's advertising reflected this corporate tension. Print ads no longer proclaimed "powered by Ford." Instead, they carefully noted an American V8 powertrain. The "Powered by Ford" 260 badges on the fenders disappeared, replaced by generic V8 callouts. On later Mark II's, a Chrysler Pentastar emblem appeared behind the wheel openings, a harbinger of what was coming. In 1967, Chrysler increased its stake to controlling interest with an additional £20 million investment. For Chrysler, the situation was unacceptable. They weren't going to manufacture a car with a Ford engine. The problem was that Chrysler didn't have a suitable replacement. Their 273 cubic inch small block Verst 8 was too large to fit in the Tiger's engine bay without major modifications. More critically, Chrysler's small block engines had the distributor positioned at the rear of the engine, while the Ford 5/8's front-mounted distributor had been one of the factors that made the original installation possible. Chrysler's big block V8 had a front-mounted distributor, but it was even larger and completely impossible to fit. Production of the Mark II lasted just 7 months. Only 633 were built, though some sources suggest the actual number was 532 or 536, depending on which Jensen production records you consult. All were left-hand drive and destined for the American market, though a handful of right-hand drive examples were built for special orders, including several for British police departments. On June 27, 1967, Jensen Motors assembled the last Sunbeam Tiger, chassis number B382100633. After exhausting Rootes' stock of Ford engines, production simply stopped. There would be no successor, no Chrysler-powered alternative. The Tiger was gone. Section 6. Legacy and Cultural Impact. The Tiger gained unexpected cultural exposure in 1965 when it became Maxwell Smart's car of choice in the spy spoof series Get Smart. The Red Tiger appeared in the opening credits and various episodes throughout the show's run. Don Adams, who played Maxwell Smart, eventually acquired the car after the series ended and reportedly gave it to his daughters. According to various sources, that Tiger now resides at the Playboy Mansion in Los Angeles. The Playboy connection went deeper than just that television car. During the Tiger's early years, Rootes advertised extensively in Playboy magazine and lent a pink Tiger with matching interior to 1965 Playmate of the Year, Joe Collins, for an entire year, perhaps the most memorable promotional vehicle deployment in automotive history. Today, the Sunbeam Tiger occupies an interesting position in the collector car market. With total production of just over 7,000 cars and far fewer surviving in original condition, they're genuinely rare. The ease of modification means that finding a completely stock Tiger is remarkably difficult. Most had their 2-barrel carburetors replaced with the LAT Edelbrock-Holley combination decades ago. Traction bars became nearly universal due to the rear axle hop that plagued hard-launched Tigers. This creates challenges for authentication. The abundance of Sunbeam Alpines in the 1970s and 80s led dishonest people to create Tiger conversions. The Sunbeam Tiger Owners Association now operates a Tiger Authentication Committee that carefully examines body shells for Tiger-only assembly techniques. Authenticated cars receive a permanent registration sticker affixed to the body shell in an unobtrusive location. Current market values reflect the Tiger's status as a Shelby-designed collectible. Average prices hover around $63,000, with exceptional Mark I examples reaching $80,000 to $100,000. Mark II cars command premium prices. Due to their extreme rarity, only about 375 are believed to still exist. The highest recorded sale was a Mark IA that brought $179,200 in March of 2022. The Sunbeam Tiger's story reveals everything wonderful and frustrating about the British motor industry in the 1960s. Here was a car that worked brilliantly, a genuine engineering success that combined American power with British chassis finesse. Road testers loved it, customers loved it. It sold well, raced successfully, and built a loyal following almost instantly. Yet it died not because of any inherent flaw, but because of corporate politics and unfortunate timing. If Chrysler's takeover had happened 2 years later, perhaps the Tiger would have had time to establish itself as indispensable. If Chrysler had possessed a small block V8 with the right dimensions and distributor placement, perhaps a Chrysler-powered Tiger could have continued. Instead, we got just 3 production years and 7,000 examples of what might have been. The irony is delicious. A British car killed by its American heart, specifically because a different American company couldn't stomach the competition. Carroll Shelby created 2 legendary V8-powered British roadsters, the Cobra and the Tiger. One became an icon worth millions. The other became a footnote, albeit a fascinating one. For those of us who remember these cars when they were still just used sports cars rather than collectibles, the Tiger represented something special. It offered Cobra performance with gentleman's manners. You could drive it to work, take it racing on Sunday, and never worry about whether you could find parts or service. The Ford's small block was everywhere. Maintenance was straightforward. The British chassis components were well understood and well supported. Today, smart collectors are rediscovering what we knew back then. The Sunbeam Tiger represents one of the best performance bargains of the 1960s. These cars deliver genuine V8 excitement, historical significance as Shelby creations, beautiful styling, and manageable ownership costs, all while remaining remarkably affordable compared to their more famous cousins. If you owned a Tiger back in the day, or if you're fortunate enough to own one now, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments. What was it like living with Ford power in a British chassis? How does it compare to the MGs and Triumphs you might have owned? And for those of you who never experienced one, does the Tiger's story make you want to seek one out? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Sunbeam Tiger's fascinating history, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. It helps me continue researching and sharing these stories of classic American and British automotive history. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the best sports cars are the ones that almost got away.